Many people have problems with art and not with reality.
So why is art different?
It's pretty simple, right?
This is knowledge, this is thinking, this is thought.
Yeah, it does something strange with your head.
Welcome to the Undergang Armchair.
Bring it.
Welcome to the Undergang Armchair. My name is Ando. Well, if you missed the show at Aarhus Kunsthal called Mastering the Art of Contemporary Art, shame on you, huh? Which, of course, I mean, shame on me, too, because I also didn't get to see it. But I was lucky enough to be able to sit down with Esmeralda and Sean, the creators of the show, and we had a fantastic conversation. It does feel weird to kind of rant and rave about how great the show was when I didn't actually see it, but that's part of the genius of the show. You don't necessarily have to have seen it to get something out of it. They also created a platform for everything which was made during the show, and it's great. So, are you confused? That makes sense if you don't know what this is all about. I should probably explain what the show was and how it was structured. That will make the conversation I'm going to share with you guys a lot more enlightening. So hold tight. I'll do that in just a second. I just wanted to tell you guys about the book festival we, the podcast, are taking part of this weekend. Yes, sir. Like I did say last time, it is your chance to say it to my face. I will be at the 1000 Books Art Book Festival this weekend with the podcast. We'll have a booth there. We'll be having conversations with folks. We'll be meeting people. We'll be promoting the show. It kicks off actually today with a seminar, an all-day free seminar at Aarhus about art books. And then on Saturday and Sunday, the fair jumps off at Charlottenburg. If you guys haven't gone before, it's a really good fair, and it's the first year they're having it at Charlottenburg now. Come say hello. I'll post links to the program and other information on the show notes for this episode. I'll also send out a mailer because we've started a mailing list. Sign up for that shit on our website. Subscribe page. We'll be sending out a bi-monthly mailer with new episodes and other pertinent art information. Oh, and the final piece of news, go see Steve Stacy, former guest of the show, Steve Stacy's show at Gallery Paulson. It is spectacular, and it's only up for a couple more weeks. All right, get to the point. I know. So like I said, we have Esmeralda Kosmatopoulos and Sean Naftel on the show today, and they have started this project. It's a concept. It's an exhibition. They call it Mastering the Art of Contemporary Art. They'll obviously explain more during our talk, but the basic idea is that they constructed a TV kitchen set in the Kunsthal. They had a long series of recipe presentations by local artists who shared how to, quote, cook artworks, some sort of process, anything. And then the exhibition of works created by anybody based off of these recipes. The project has a complete online component. That's why it makes sense you didn't have to see the show. It's called maca.tv. There'll also be links to that up on the show notes for this episode, and you have to check it out. It's the whole reason I'm so excited about this. There's tons and tons of stuff on there. It's really, really cool. And the other great thing about it is that this is just the beginning. They're going to keep this moving and keep it going on. All right, I will let them explain the rest. It's really fantastic. I will see you guys this weekend at the Art Book Festival. Tell all your friends. And Sean and Esmeralda, take it away. Oh, and don't mind Geronimo, Esmeralda's dog buddy, who's chewing on his bone during the episode. Enjoy.
I feel with my dog.
It's funny because actually just looking at you guys now, it does seem like you guys are a little kind of like just battle hardened. It's been weeks and weeks of doing this and everything's just...
It has been really hard. I mean, for me, it's like the first time that I do a performance project, and the project that lasts so long, because before, like, usually you have like the preparation of the project, and then you have like a week of installation where you just kind of like exhaust yourself,
and then the opening,
and then you have the opening, And then everything goes well. Everybody taps you in the, give a little tap on the back. And then you have the week where you just stay home after, like with the baby blues, looking at the ceiling and say, I hate myself. I'm such a loser.
Right.
This is horrible. Nobody understood my vision.
Totally.
And then you move on to the next thing, right? And then you come back to the exhibition space, if it's a local space, once a week and say, hi, everyone, like a guest star.
Right.
And here we had everything. But I'm not yet on my sofa looking at the ceiling and say I'm a failure. We had to like keep the
aspirations.
activity. Yeah. I know it's going to happen in New York, but we have to keep the activity and the energy because I feel like a lot of the project was, us. I mean, Sean and I were kind of like a bit cartoonish in a way. We have like very bold and unique personalities. And when we're doing the performance, you have to give everything because you have to like,
perform. You have to perform.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
And keep
Yeah,
the
it's a
audience
lot.
engaged and have fun. And if the artist gets a bit like, always redirect with the artist as well, like, you know, to keep it, to make it like a show, you know?
Yeah.
So that I think after like 3 weeks, you're tired.
Yeah.
Not tired of it, but just
tired,
period.
Right.
like just exhausted.
Yeah.
And I mean, also with the artist, like another part of that is where you're always kind of redirecting. But then on top of that, because we're dealing with English is not the first language of most of these people, that there are some times that some of the artists have been, you know, have said things like, thank you for helping me. I was trying to remember what that word was.
Nobody said that to me, Sean. Nobody said that to me.
But that was a comment a couple of times that they were like, oh, I was trying to think of this word, and I'm glad that you were able to like see that I had a pause and you knew what the pause was.
Right. And you have to make those decisions on the run constantly.
Yeah, because you don't want to step over somebody. You just want to make it easier for them to explain their process, right? So, because that's kind of what it like. That's kind of what Maca is that it's about the process and it's about having the conversation about it. So you want to make that as seamless as possible,
Right.
And as well fun for the artist. Like I am, like a lot of them were concerned prior. I mean, when you reach out to them, no artist said no because of not sharing the values of like opening their practice, of sharing the recipe of how to make their artworks, which is what to me would have been the obstacle, right? I mean, I would be like, artists are like, no, I'm not going to show my secret recipe to make this thing, you know, which is actually sometimes happen to be something very easy to figure
Right,
out.
because it's way too easy.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I have a specific technique to do my collage, like what you use glue and paper. So no, I mean, like I'm just like laughing at it, but like everybody was like right away. Nobody questioned this idea of like, what authorship mean and how am I open? But people were like, is it gonna be boring or like, are they gonna understand my English?
Yeah, most people were really just concerned about like the audience.
Yes.
Yeah,
That
that's
was the
very
big
Danish
concern.
too. When I ask people to come on the show, they're like, "Oh, my English isn't good enough," or
Yeah.
you know, no one wants to hear me talk for an hour, or whatever they might be worried about.
Yeah.
So our job was really to like make them feel comfortable and like, you know, like, I think like the TV cooking set, like it's kind of like the kitchen, like we had to kind of like play the game and immerse everybody in this kind of like, this is really an actual kitchen, sorry. All right. There is like props that were reminding it, but we had to like feel like mama is cooking home.
It was actually functional. It wasn't just a set.
Yeah, it was an actual functional space.
Yeah.
And you had to reassure them, and like after 2 minutes, they were forgetting about the audience, and at the end, all of them had said thank you. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
Nobody said, "Oh fuck, I screwed up," and even excuse my French.
No, this is
French.
Beep.
this is a podcast. It's all good.
Okay.
It's legit.
So nobody said like, "Oh, I screwed up," or "I should have done it better," because it didn't matter, you know, like it was a fun moment and everybody had fun. And when you have fun, Sean and I will have fun with this project. You share the fun with the artist, and the audience end up having fun. And you have a lot of people in the audience that came to multiple performances because it was
that
fun.
was hilarious to see, like the same face, sometimes sitting in the same seat was also kind of funny, like just to see like the same person sitting there and just smiling.
But I mean, it really seems like you guys did a good job. If all the artists felt that space become real, and a space to you know, achieve whatever they hope to achieve, and then the audience also engaged.
Yeah.
That's got to be it. That's got to be the thing that you guys really wanted.
Yeah, I think so. I think that really the fact that it went so, we would have these moments where, yeah, the artist would just know, and you could tell that they realized they were comfortable, and we realized that we were having a good time. And then when you look at the audience and they're engaged, like it's actually kind of it's a weird high.
It's magic.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, but I mean, as well, like if you look at the set, I know it's a podcast, but like if you look at the set, it was we had taken like all the kind of like archetypes of what makes a TV set of a cooking show, and as well, it was a hybrid between like the cooking TV show set and the blow up dollhouse. So there was kind of like kitschiness to it, which was not like kitschiness, like so not tacky, but there was like a fake window and a kind of like a dark, like a bright turquoise blue, like a
the 1950s kitchen, Julia Child,
and then when you talk to the child part of all of us, everybody opens up and everybody wants to play, because we all are just craving to just say, oh, okay, let's mess up and like mix some water and concrete and then pour it there, and let's just kind of like be like the scientist, or like let's get dirty.
Yeah. You know? Well, when you think about it, when you're a kid, one of the first things that happens when you start talking and walking is you want to go in the kitchen. Yeah. You know, you see people doing stuff in there every day, and you're like, I want to do that. Yeah.
I think that's true. And also, I think a lot of time kids just relate that to play.
Right.
Like they see they're playing with things, they're touching things, they're moving things around, they're changing things. And then to see, you know, your parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever it is in the kitchen, also like going and grabbing things out of their like toy box and putting them together. And then all of a sudden you end up with something else. It's the process isn't that different.
Right. You're right.
It's almost identical.
Yeah.
It just, you know, you are supposed to eat the things that come out of the kitchen, not out of the toy box, which
sandbox.
A lot of kids don't understand. But, and I think like at least my earliest memories are really, they're of sitting in my great grandmother's kitchen.
Right.
And like, I still know the smell of the kitchen. I was 3. But I still remember that as a place. And out of all the times I've moved in my life, I remember the kitchen in every house that we lived in. I don't remember like my bedroom. I don't remember the living room very well. I do remember the kitchen. I do remember watching my family make food. And I do remember that as being a thing that then once I was old enough, I was invited to continue that.
Right.
And it demystified, like that was a demystification of that space and of that art form. And I think that this project is kind of it is a continuation of that idea.
So if we go back to the beginning, where did this idea come from between the two of you, and what's the process of this becoming real?
So what happened is that like I was it's very interesting because like like this project is like Sean and I, like there is nowhere like really like a kind of like a yin yang that makes it. And I am like I grew up in France, and I have like this kind of like idea of like we have to think everything and debate, and let's look at it that
smoke
side.
Gawas at the cafe and talk about it.
The other side. In French we call it let's remake the world, and we do that at every dinner. And so I wanted to remake the world and explore the idea of like authorship, which interests me because because with Sean we don't usually work together, and my practice is a lot about the idea of like language and communication in the post-internet age, and how like when technologies are everywhere, it comes to challenge the fundamentals of who we are, and like the fundamentals of what makes us human. And so I was interested in the idea of like authorship, because we're at a time where you in the physical world, in the analog world, you have this idea of the artist as a single genius inherited from the like romantic time. And then when you go to online, you have like a open source, you have like this kind of like a plural authorship. Nobody knows who made the first lolcat, and everything is about built together, and everyone agrees on that. And in a way, it kind of like reminds me of like the Greek antiquity and the oral tradition, where before Homer wrote the Odyssey, it was just a continuous reappropriation. So we're at a time where analog and digital are totally intertwined, right? And that, despite that, the concept of like authorship is different in one word, not in the other, you know? So like, let's say I copy paste a sentence from someone else to write a book. If it's an ebook, I'm fine, you know, normal. And then if someone prints in a physical book, no good. So that was what's interesting me. And I had written like kind of like a proposal, keeping it only on this kind of like let's think about it thing. And my English is not really good. So I emailed several people, friends and friends of friends, saying, hey, can you look at it and correct my English? And one of the friends of friends say, you must meet my boyfriend, who now is a husband. And that was Sean. And so, Sean, I can summarize your practice and then you can like tell me I'm totally wrong, but Sean is more...
We've actually turned into a married couple.
Yeah.
We've been married for 25 years now.
That's what an art project will do.
I told you not to do that. No, so Sean is like working more in this kind of like do-it-yourself thing and reflects as well like the American way of like let's not think too much. Let's just like take like the hammer and like the nails and start making stuff.
Yep.
And so we start talking and like we're like it took a year and a half to formalize it, right? We just knew we had something that was a shared interest. And we both want to have fun. We both are not taking anything seriously. So we're not like we just don't want to like, everything has to stay very playful. That was really like the shared thread, the common thread we had. And we just like started talking. And
so it's serious. Like it's serious, but the idea is that it's serious play.
Right. It's that magic balance between having the energy and the gumption to pull it off, but not drowning it in production either.
Yeah.
And like being an onion, like several layers. Like we want the first to be like you go in the kitchen there and you're like, oh my God, like so a bit goofy and everything. So you open up. And then like, of course, if you want, you stay to that level. But if you want, you can peel the onion and start saying, okay, what does that really mean? And what that really mean for us is the idea of like, we wanted to draw the parallel between cooking and culinary art and visual art, because I think that culinary art, it's something everybody's familiar with, like a cooking TV show in Japan, in Austria, in Australia, has the same codes, you know. And then when you see in a cooking show, the very famous chef comes and he shows in front of everyone the secret recipe. And then you're home and, you, start making it and then you're like, oh, I'm going to add some carrots. Oh, let's put some more spice, and you reappropriate it and then you serve it to your guests. And it's like when you look at the visual art world, it doesn't happen.
Not at all.
Right? It's
not
the
at all.
opposite.
It's all proprietary always.
So we wanted to just take something that everybody's familiar with, the TV show, and try to draw this parallel and make art in the kitchen. And then in that way, challenge all this notion, but in a very playful way.
Yeah.
So you just can take the playful part, or you can start like thinking of like, what does it mean? What authorship means? What the creative process is? You know. So,
it's such a rich field.
Yeah. So that was really like the story.
Well, what about you, Sean? So you get an email out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Someone you don't know.
Actually, I didn't even get the email. I got the, hey, there's this woman, Esmeralda, that I know through a whole series of interactions. I think you guys need to talk. And I was like, okay, about like, what's the process? Like, what are we talking about? So I work collaboratively often. I have kind of a collaborator I've been working with for 8 years, almost 9 years, I guess. And Esmeralda and I have been working for 3, I guess, at this point, almost.
3 years, it's my first collaboration.
Yeah. And I have a couple other people that I've done collaborations with off and on. And I was like, okay, well, this will be interesting. We'll see kind of how the dynamic kind of changes from person to person and that sort of thing.
Have you collaborated with women? Sorry, interrupt.
Have I? Yes. It's been a while, but not, I have actually. But yeah, it has been quite some time. And so, I sent the email, or Erin, my wife, showed me the email and just kind of gave me kind of an idea of what was happening. And I realized that I had kind of been thinking the same things and kind of, I'd been interested in this idea of like cooking and the idea of how like the television show, I'm addicted to cooking television shows. I should say that, and cookbooks.
Yeah.
I have a ridiculous love for cookbooks that is I use them, I write in them, I rip out pages, I end up taping the pages back into the book in a different place because it was in the wrong place for me. But I love this idea that you can kind of, you don't actually have to make it, but you can read it and you can kind of picture it in your head. But if you make it, it's even more rich. And obviously every time you make it, it's going to be different than what's in the book. It's never going to taste like what Jamie Oliver made. It's never going to taste like what Julia Child made.
To be sad though, like if she's just like
if it's just a carbon copy of, or not even a carbon copy, it's just the identical. It's like a clone of the original thing. It's kind of like,
right,
okay,
yeah.
But so I got the email and we started talking. I think we met at some point in time and just started this conversation. We realized that we both have very, very similar ideas of like how the idea of reappropriating, deconstructing something and then reconstructing it, and how the individual can change that regardless of what the recipe was. It became an ongoing conversation. And so
it took some time. It took a lot of time to formalize how this concept is going to translate into like something physical, right?
Yeah. Well, and actually I think it was like, it didn't even take, it took a long time to formalize, but it actually just took a long time to like, not informalize, but like it took a long time to just kind of like hash out what we were thinking and what we were, just to like kind of like open it up and see what it was and see if it was actually an idea that we both were really like truly kind of working on the same page. And then we began this formalization of just, and it was lots and lots of conversations and lots of meetings and lots a lot of things over the internet. Like we really did a lot of our communication, even though we're in the same city.
That's New York. You can never see anyone.
Yeah.
It's so difficult.
I live all the way in Queens, so it is pretty far from where she lives.
That's not the excuse. The excuse like it's just New York. And
but
like
it's New York, yeah.
When you see someone more than like once a month, you're like, whoa, back up.
And it is because like
me.
You just have this like weird thing with distance there.
Right.
And you have weird time constraints. And so it came down to us working via text message and emails and like a random cup of tea in here. I
don't know, I was reading like Roland Barthes, Foucault, other like academic texts. It's kind of like idea like people had questioned like where the locus of the work is and what means the author, and like really that is kind of like conceptual things, and more like how these things that are like so serious and deep, we can make them approachable and like approach the audience in a more like emotional way to talk about that.
Yeah.
But I have to say something like Sean works collaboratively. I don't. And
you do.
First time. But my point is kind of like because I'm very opinionated and have a very crystal clear vision of like how things are. And my husband, when I said to him, I'm going to collaborate, he's like, oh God, one more drama. And I have to say, in a weird way, it has been like absolutely flawless. Like instead, I haven't compromised my vision.
Yeah, neither have I.
No point. Like it was the same. Like there was no more, when you collaborate or in a marriage, you're like, all right, I'm going to give that up to him. I'm going to pick my battles. No. It was really from the like concept to the formalization to the aesthetics to how the kitchen set is going to look. We were finishing each other's sentence, which is super awkward,
That's extraordinarily lucky.
It is extraordinary. Yeah.
It was actually a little eerie at moments because it was like, okay, so I'm thinking this. That's amazing. I was thinking the same thing last night when I was going to bed. Really? Yeah. And then we would and so that's done. Like, you know that you can put that to bed now. You can just like
no reason
use
to
it as an ingredient.
That.
Yeah. And then you can bring it back up and it can add in and just like enrich whatever the next part of the process is. So then it just became a thing where it was like step to step to step to step to step without having any of these like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back,
or debates,
which would,
I did the first video and I'm like, I want to put this like jingle from like old movies, and this is like you can like or hate, right? It's not like a ambient sound to introduce the work. It's kind of like a cheesy one. So
is it the one that starts out all the videos? Yeah.
So it's and like Sean's like, I love it, And
I loved it too.
It's kind of amazing, right? Kind of amazing. It's also addictive.
All our bold choices, all bold choices. Not like nothing is gray. Everything is bold, and all the time it was, that's exactly what I wanted to do. So that's what's really awesome. Yeah.
But was the process? You guys said it took a long time. Was it also research based? Was you guys doing a lot of kind of?
We did some research. It was more
just
conversational than anything.
Yeah.
And I think a part of the reason was that we're both incredibly busy. So we were working on other projects, and I think those other projects actually enriched this project as we were working through the process. And it was conversational. And I think it was one of those things where it just kind of took time in the oven, right? It took a while to bake this bread, and we really needed to make sure that it made sense and that it was full and ripe and had all the notions.
But that's what was cool. Like, it's kind of like this project is really confusing because it's it's true. It's very confusing because, so what is it? Is it like a performance-based exhibition? Is it a participatory exhibition? Is it an online platform?
Is it social practice?
Physical? And so the thing is kind of like, as the fact that it took us time and that it was conversational. We didn't say with Sean, hey, we share the same interest, we should do a performance together. We just said, let's talk about things. Yeah. And we didn't get any limits and we create something really hybrid.
Yeah.
That doesn't, that if you haven't if you were starting with a framework, it would never have been able to happen. And
yeah, I think our only limit was we both knew that it was going to turn into something, that it wasn't just going to be, cooking, and that it wasn't going to just be a conversation, that it was a conversation that definitely was going. It was going somewhere.
There was a project.
There was a project there. It wasn't just this like ongoing conversation of debate and like trying to figure things out and blah, 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 blah. It was really like, we both want this in the world and we want to see it. We want to see it exist, and it's important that it does exist. And so these conversations are how we're going to make that through we're going to make those steps.
Were the forms really a big part of the discussion? Because like you were saying, there's a lot of things. There is a social practice element. There is a reference to popular culture. Food is one of the deepest, most involved cultural things throughout all of history. Performance. Aesthetics. I was actually really, really attracted to the aesthetics. I'm a photographer by most definitions, and to me, I got 2 photographs in the mail of the show, and immediately was like, oh my god, what is this? Just this kitchen setup inside of an empty art hall. Luckily, the first photo I shot was actually of the whole space, not just the close-up. So I saw the audience, I saw the set, and I saw the space, and I was just like, oh damn, I was immediately in from that point on. So were you guys talking a lot about are we leaning performance direction?
No.
Are we leaning critique
direction? We didn't
direction?
talk that at all.
Zero.
Yeah, that was nothing.
We never thought. I mean, I can speak for my part because I speak a lot again. Sorry. I apologize and I continue, right?
You do not need to apologize.
No, I'm a self-taught artist, so I never had this mentality that you may get in art school of where does this work fit in.
Yeah. How does it exist?
I mean, Sean doesn't have it for other reasons, but for me, I never tried to position my work inside something or something else. So it was just that.
But also in terms of tools, if you're making an artwork, just like, let's just say you're using spices in a dish, you use certain ones in order to achieve certain things. Yeah. So was that because obviously you're trying to engage with the audience somehow.
Yeah.
And so I'm just thinking more about how cognitive you guys were, or whether the format fits the content. If you guys just said, this is what we'd like to do, and this is the most natural extension of that.
I would actually go with the latter. I think that it was the natural extension. Like, we knew that, we knew what the idea was, and it seemed like these were the natural, these were all natural. That, these are the ways, and it's also kind of the form that a lot of these cooking, these chefs, these are how these chefs actually kind of exist, right? So they have their cooking. If you think of, I'm just going to use another example. So The River Cottage, it's a British show. He is a famous chef. He has his cooking show. He has guests come on that he works with. They create something. He then also has his restaurant that people come and see things, and he also has these cookbooks. So there's this kind of natural progression that automatically happens, where it exists both, like you were saying, analog and digitally. It exists in a multiplicity of media, right? Which is very much how we exist just as people. We exist within a multiplicity of media daily. It's really hard not to do that. You have to go off to like some silent retreat in the middle of the mountains to not exist in that sort of situation. So I think that what we created is something that is just natural within the culture.
Right.
And almost
it
any
grew
culture.
organically out of the idea.
Yeah.
The work, I think it's across the board, the way, if I had to summarize like the work of this, the award for this show is honest. You know what I mean? Because there is this like us like just want to have fun and like simple. There is the honesty of the artists that are like, I'm not going to pretend that that this is like I'm throwing missiles to Mars. Like my concept is what is there, but there is an honesty in opening your practice, and like it's very genuine, the whole thing. And no, we did honestly like 2 weeks before. We've been working a lot because then it's going to sound that we didn't work, but we did worked a lot. But 2 weeks before, we still, until we arrived at the Kunsthal, it was still 3 PowerPoint slides with 3 mood boards, one for the learn part, one for the make part, and one for the show part. That's what it, you know. It was like a mood board with 3 pictures of Martha Stewart's show, and that's what we're going to look, you know. And like and it's really just made absolute sense. I mean, Sean is really excellent in like props and setting and all that. Like he has really an eye, but it's just natural in a way. That's why the reason why it worked, because it was very intuitive.
Totally, because I think that a lot of the best artworks come naturally from whatever well they came from. You know, they don't need to be forced together. They come together.
Well, and I think that even works when you extend that to the artists that collaborated with us on the show. Like again, people were nervous, but they weren't nervous about necessarily their practice. They're secure in their practice. What they were nervous about is being in front of people, which is normal,
it's just a whole different way of engaging with their work.
But I think that like it became we had such this amazing natural progression of like talking and how that worked, and this relationship that we built with these artists was actually kind of, I think it's pretty amazing. I think you probably agree. Like it was really kind of beautiful to see these things open up and watch these artists talk. I mean, some of them have very simple, like the material part of their practice is very simple, but what's really engaging and what really builds the artwork is the context that it's made in and the concepts that are behind it. And then other ones have like a much more complicated sort of system. And that doesn't mean that they're any more simple in idea, but it's this like kind of amazing thing that was happening with all of the artists, of the ebb and flow, and the way that we then collaborated with them was, I don't know, kind of exciting.
But think of it as well, like, I think it's like the same way what happens in a kitchen. Like, you know, you can't force and plan. Like, when you invite people and you're like in a more casual setup, you're going to start cooking and you're going to be like, oh no, no. You go sit there. You took 1 spoon too much of that. Go there. You have to, you can't control, and things, people, it's the core of what makes us human and human relationships. And we just allowed that to happen, I would say.
Yeah. I imagine that this was probably a pretty incredible experience for a lot of the artists too, because they had kind of a completely new way of engaging with their own work and their own practice. And if they're anything like I am, those sort of things kick open doors, which may have been right there, but I hadn't seen.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably happened. Well, I mean, that happened for us just doing the process. Right. I would imagine that, I think it probably does change some of the artists, or at least the way that they think, or maybe not the way that they think about the work, but maybe the way that they talk about the work.
One thing too, because we only speak not about the performance, but performance is like really one of the 3 steps of it. Yeah. And so the artists come and they present their art recipe to make their work, and then we make these recipes available online and through workshops, and then the artists display their work in the exhibition space, which is the 3rd part of the project. And we organize this and everybody's invited to bring their work inspired by the recipes. And so I was really curious about how are they going, because one thing is to say, to show off and say, I don't care about authorship. Here is how I do, guys, and one thing is that to really see actually someone reappropriating it. And then you're like, oh, and I was really concerned about that. And I was yesterday, in the exhibition space with Dite, who is one of the artists. that present a work called Earforms, where she interviews people that have synesthesia, and based on what they describe, the way they envision the year, she creates this little like a statue with like a wire. You can see on the website. But
we'll put a link up to it.
Okay, yes, that would be great. I will send it to you. But and then like I was with her yesterday in the exhibition space, and she's like, "Oh, look there! People did a year form," and so she was so excited. And she was like, "Oh my God, look at them!" That people liked her work so much that they wanted to take it as an inspiration to the work. And she's like, "How did they do? Who did they interview?" She was like over the moon about
she
that.
Loved it.
Yeah, she's made her happy, you know. And it's like a validation or like a sign of respect. And that again brings me back to what authorship was, right? Before, even after Middle Age, right? During Roman time, it was when you were using someone else's quote without even saying it, it was an honor you were making to that person, because the idea was to improve art to make it as perfect as possible. And that it was a celebration for the other person if you were taking his words and like using them.
It was towards the greater good for society.
Yes, and it was an honor. It was not like okay, I'm accepting. It's an honor if someone decides to take my work and try to make it better, you know. And that's interesting, because then you're like, where does this like notion of authorship we have now in the analog world comes from? And then
Renaissance.
Money.
Yeah.
I think money is really the big one there.
But like,
it comes out of the genius also.
Right.
Like it
the
comes
idea
out
of the solitary genius.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I
but
think,
all that comes from where? Because people want to like attach something to someone, and like then you have to like claim. But the natural, the kind of like a more like a organic way of reacting is like cool, you know, like
right.
Yeah, and just pure excitement.
Right.
I mean, you're right. There was that amazing thing when you would see the artist walk in, they're like, whoa, did people remake all these pieces? Yeah. Wow. Like they get so excited.
Well, I think the context helps too, because it's one thing you get so used to as a working artist, the whole like, I work on my thing, I exhibit my thing, and then I go back, like you were saying earlier. And then maybe since you're in this closed loop, and then you go to some other art show and you see someone who appropriated one of your ideas, or maybe didn't at all anyways, doesn't matter, but it's something similar to yours, you might be like, hey, you know, but as soon as you guys create this space for reusing those ideas, and not even just reusing, but engaging with people with the ideas. Because in a way, it's more real, that engagement, than just viewing passively and then going on with your life. You know, that can just bring that excitement out just by recontextualizing the idea.
Yeah,
I agree.
But what happened when you guys, you know, you said it took a while to bake the idea, when it became a little more solid, a little more cooked, shall we say?
When was that?
Whenever you guys got tired of talking about it and decided to take the next step for making it real, how did you go about that?
I think the first step was really to get it securely down on paper, really. Formalize that process, to basically say, we'd been talking about these different notions of like how it exists, but then all of a sudden it was like, well, we have step 1, and then we have step 2, and we have why don't we just do step 1, step 2, step 3, and formalize those as the way that the process will
a recipe,
as a recipe, So it works as a recipe,
exactly.
Really? So it wasn't in the context of an exhibition proposal, for example?
Not at first. It really, I think the beginning really was for us to like look at, well, how does this, like, what does this actually look like? What's the actual idea?
Right.
Because it stays very fluid and whatever, you know, kind of floating in the ether of us talking in these conversations, but we knew that we wanted it to go farther. So the first step really was, how do we formalize it? The first way to formalize it was to make the recipe for the project.
I like this. You guys are dedicated.
Yeah.
But I want to demystify our work too, because honestly, mastering the art of contemporary art is a concept. It's not, there's no like, we have 500 words where we're like, it is that, you know, it's not it's a TV set kitchen. But it can be like there's 1 million forms to make a TV set kitchen. We just need to capture the archetype of a TV. You know, it have been this one, or it's not like, you know, like a sculpture where you have like, it's that. It would have been like 10 different million ways different, and it would have still worked, you know. So until like 2 weeks before, it was just ideas. It's it's a TV set. It's a website, okay, with recipes, and then it's an empty space where people bring work. I mean, that's what it is.
Right.
So, what we had is just ideas, and, the materialization happened as the exhibition was happening. And, we approached Kunsthal, and we approached several other institutions that are like, let's wait to see a bit more of how it's gonna be. And like, Kunsthal Aarhus were really like, had the guts to say it's 500 words, it's an abstract concept, okay, a TV cooking show, and like there's a website, you know, but
yeah, we shot a pilot in Esmeralda's kitchen, and that was how that was our first video, was a pilot of us, Esmeralda interviewing me on one of my processes, and we shot. It was very much like, we need to see this thing, how it functions and how it works, and it was shot as
amateur and 500 words. That's what the work was until the exhibition happened, you know.
Right. And a mood board.
And my 3 PowerPoint slides, I'm very proud of them. So that's it, you know. And like, and now there is more recipes. Now the website has we made some meat to it, right? And now people can visualize. But I'm sure like even like at Kunsthal Aarhus, they trusted us. In a way, I don't know, the same way as I trust Sean, absolutely blind, like without, and he does. Yeah. The Kunsthal trusted us and took an incredible risk, because we never collaborated together. We never did this show together. We never did really a lot of performances.
Yeah, neither of us have done that much of performance.
We're not Danish.
Yeah, exactly. We're not Danish. And we don't know artists in Denmark.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you guys hatched this scheme in New York and don't really have a connection to Denmark. And it's not even Copenhagen. It's Aarhus. It's the second largest city in Denmark.
Yeah.
And hold on. If you see my website and Sean's website, you're like, why these people are together, you know?
Right, there's no context for it.
You know, I don't, like, we have this shared idea, a lot of shared values, but our themes are like, why are they together? And I think people when they saw first the project and my work, they're like, why is connecting with your work? And then like through the website, through all that, I found my identity, like as my single practice in it. But it was really like just like a random.
Oh, super random. Good. Yeah, I think random is the right word. Like there was a lot of random,
fun and random,
and there was a lot of I can't think of the word. There was a lot of like serendipity within the experience. Like we just kept having these moments where it was like, oh, that's right. Cool.
That's how that goes.
Yeah. Oh, that's right too. Wow, this is kind of amazing. We're getting a lot of these moments where like, and even when they weren't right, they were still, it wasn't wrong. It just was not the thing. So we just kept going, and like you learn from those experiences.
Well, I think that, you know, most artists go through this long process of trying to figure out how to make ideas actualized and how to make shows happen and how to make that. And it seems like when an idea grows out of a natural place, of a strong foundation, the serendipity just keeps going. You know, shows come easier when the idea is easier.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't mean easier simple. I mean easier as in more natural, more organic, more, you know, fits well together. And, you know, but I think it's important to focus on this process of trying to make ideas happen too. So did you guys, how many places did you send this recipe to?
We keep on sending, but everybody's like, even after the validation of the Kunsthal Aarhus, people were like, let's wait and see. But
are we talking like hundreds?
No,
not hundreds. No.
Because you cannot cold call a kind of project like that. You know, you just like
that's the thing.
To start a conversation. You know how it works, but I feel that it's randomness. It's the right encounter. It's this stupid email I sent to correct my English that connected me with this person that in his practice has no other connection, that this shared, I mean, we have a lot, but it doesn't, at first glance, it doesn't make sense. And then it's about having the Kunsthal Aarhus having like this vision of having a 2-year program about like collective making. And they had this open call, and you were reading every sentence, and we're like, that's mastering the art of, that's us. And we got this, it's me browsing the internet and finding this, in sending it there, having this person, Josia, that now is at work at Liverpool Biennale, saying, yes, that's my vision too. It's just people with the same vision that randomly come together, and that's what life is about, right? In a way.
So it really has nothing to do with Denmark or Aarhus. It has to do with the fact that there was a opening, or there was just the right
it was
moment.
The right set of circumstances. Yeah. Because really the idea behind this piece, behind Macca, behind everything with this is that with doing it here in Denmark, it's about Danish visual cuisine, right? We're looking at the right now, artists that are working right now. So we now have all the recipes for right now in Denmark of this set of artists. So now when we go on and we do it in other cities, it'll be the visual cuisine of those places. Well, then what starts happening when people from those cities look at the Mastering the Art of Contemporary Art website and go, oh, these things are happening in Denmark. I really like this piece. So then that language starts crossing borders. It starts crossing ideas. It starts kind of changing the whole time. So you end up with this kind of the way that a lot of cookbooks, I know at least in the States, like, and I think in other places, like in the States, you could find these cookbooks, like the Southern Living cookbook, and it would be like Southern Living, like best of Alabama cooking, or it would be
pie.
Yeah, exactly. Or like it's Christmas cuisine from like the Appalachian states or whatever it was. Like I would buy these books all the time just because they're so weird. But then I realized like, oh, well, this is the same idea. Like we're looking at these places and what's happening based on this kind of geographic location, these people that have these ideas, and how does that then start translating from place to place to place to place, on and on and on into the future.
And I think the website is really key, because it's, first of all, as we want to make this project travel, that's like a clear thing, and to make this network. And first of all, this website is a manifesto, progressively, because the more people that like show the recipe, the more people like sign this idea of like, hey, that's how we see authorship, and that's how we see our art practice. And then imagine like after a few iterations and now we are like season 1, episode 1 to 16, right? And there's going to be a season 2, like where somewhere else in the world, and someone is like browsing the website and it's like, oh, that's a cool recipe. Season 1, episode 3, I like. Oh, but season 5, episode 2 is cool too. I'm going to mix both. And then like you make fusion.
It's a weird Creole of ideas and materials and location.
Well, that's the absolutely tremendous part about this idea, is that it is kind of bottomless. You're just creating a context for people who are already working with ideas and processes to share them.
We offer a framework and we translate. That's what we're doing. And the freedom is absolute from the artist, for the people that make the work and bring it for everyone.
Man, I'm just really excited. I think it's really, really, really great what you guys have done. It's super cool. And it's really cool too, because if it is going to keep going, which you guys are saying it will, it's just going to become more and more of its own thing as time goes on. You're also going to create a tremendous archive.
Yeah. And I'm really excited. I really obviously like books and things like that. So the archive of it is actually really exciting for me.
Yeah.
It's really excited to be able to say like, look at what was happening at this time in this place with these people. And how then does that relate to now? Or how does that relate to 2 years from now?
And how does that relate from here to there? I mean, I'm really curious to see, because if we see like some things, some behaviors at any point, I cannot predict them. Like we just give a framework, things that are similar in random places. Then you're like, where is the human nature? Like what is something that we share that transcends our cultures?
Yeah. And how are like, maybe there are cultural regularities that you don't realize that you share, or maybe they're not. Yeah. You don't realize that you share or don't share with another place. Like, is it that you're post-colonial, or is it that you come from a Germanic-speaking language? Is it that, I don't know, everybody eats fish? I don't know what it is. Or
Whatever
like
it could
you
be.
like blue. Yeah, whatever it is, like, what are those things, and how then do you start understanding? Maybe you didn't know. Maybe it wasn't something. Then it starts spinning on to other ideas and understanding why.
So when it became clear that you were coming to Denmark, how did you start the process of engaging with Denmark? You know, because you guys had to find artists.
So
you
smart.
had to.
Yeah. Googling is, it's amazing.
Thank you, Google. I should put in.
And dangerous.
And really, yeah, it's really a strange experience because you
Right,
kind
getting
of
a crash course in a whole art scene in a weird way, right?
Organically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, we got 2 names,
Yeah.
and we asked these 2 names. Give us some names.
How did you find those 2 names?
The Kunsthal
Yeah.
Okay.
gave
Yeah.
some
They
advice.
said these people would probably be.
Well, they
the right
just said
thing
that
for
these
this.
are people that we like. Yeah.
And we saw some galleries too, and we reach out to some galleries, say, hey, do you have any artists to recommend local, and or organically? But that was, I mean, Sean has a very good experience in like engaging and community based things, which I don't. And that was really, we didn't have a trip to prepare beforehand. So establishing the contact and convincing people, say like, hello, I'm from New York. I'm going to be visiting your country.
Exactly.
I have this idea.
Yeah. It's kind of like going door to door and saying, would you like to look at some knives?
Yeah, totally.
You know,
But from far away, like
Yeah.
we can speak, but wait a second, I am 6 hours after you, so it can only be at the, you know. So we were like virtual cartoons for them too.
Yeah. There's a lot of just random emails of, so is this happening? Yeah. So these are the materials that I need. And then you'd have that moment of, well, we're going to have to figure out how to do that because I don't know where to buy things in Denmark yet. So we'll figure out where things are in Denmark, and we'll then luckily with the Kunsthal, they have such a large support network that we really do have some really great people helping us.
So you could reach out and say, look, I need to know where to get some plaster, some hammers.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But it's
Some
like
fabric.
trust.
Yeah.
Because I mean, these people said yes.
Yeah.
But we built a whole show of random people we don't know
Yeah.
that said yes, we're gonna come. I mean, like how many times you get stood up by someone you meet online, right?
Absolutely. And you didn't come here beforehand.
No, neither of us. For me, it's my first time in Denmark. I think it's also your first time in Denmark. So
We love it.
And you brought together a bunch of people to cook art.
yeah, a bunch of artists and a
And being excited about it.
bunch of Kunsthal people and a bunch of people from the city. And
That's pretty wild. Were most of the artists you guys worked with, were they local to Aarhus? Were they Jutland artists, or did they come from all over Denmark?
Denmark.
all over Denmark.
Okay.
Yeah. And some of them have Aarhus connections, but live in Copenhagen.
Most artists live here, yeah.
Yeah. There is a pretty large community of artists living in Aarhus, which has been really interesting to see how they are experiencing that city and what, they take us around. That's actually been a really lovely experience to get to know their kind of situation that they're in and their lifestyle and how that informs their practice.
Yeah, and actually I realized as soon as they said most artists in Copenhagen, that's probably wrong. It's just most artists inside the art system are in Copenhagen. They're probably excluded to a certain degree, people who aren't here.
Yeah, it's possible. That would be one of those
It's hard to go
things.
that deep because if an artist wants to be secluded in Aarhus without a website, well, Google cannot help us on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, it's like sometimes I know that it sounds amazing to you, but it's so simple. We just trust. It's just nothing else, like
And try.
Trust and try in very honest way,
Just
like
throw
it's
it out there.
I could, we can. I'm a person that worries. I could worry about and what if. But invite people to your home for dinner where people come.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna come, and then I don't know,
And you have a party in an empty art hall.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't think we ever thought any of the worst would ever happen.
Because again, the idea is so strong as a foundation, as a carrying point that it almost seems impossible.
The worst that could have happened was I don't know if there is the word. Like,
No, there
I
was
don't
worse.
think
It was artists not coming because
Yeah,
I'm the
there
one
were-
that worries. So
there
I
were
can tell
those-
you a
the
list
artists
of-
not coming, but even still,
Here comes
like,
the list.
I think that,
Wait a
like,
second.
I don't think, there were so many people involved. There's so much stuff. It's not like we weren't going to get any of the artists to come. That wasn't going to happen. That we've had so many conversations and so many like kind of lovely interactions with these people that we knew that some of them, a lot of them really believed in what was happening and were really interested. So I think the worst is that a few artists wouldn't come.
And that nobody's going to make the works too,
Yeah,
because there's
that
step
was a big
3.
part, yeah.
And like imagine if nobody relates and nobody comes to the performance, and imagine like first artist does it, nobody comes, and then like the word spreads and people are going to be like, it's hurting. Or then like then people say, oh, it's cool, and then go home. But what the gap between just attending the performance and just like go home and keep on going with your life, but how do you make the person not only attend, go home and say, hey, I want to make stuff too. And not only I want to make stuff to home, but I want to bring it back to kind of stuff. I mean, tons of reason to worry. And Sean is really like, which really I give that credit to him. He's like, it's just.
I just really believe that people would. I genuinely like believe that
It's
that
a
people
Quay
would.
method, right? You believe it's something, it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it did.
Yeah. And I really did. Like, I really believe that, like, the projects are engaging enough. The pieces are engaging enough. The space is engaging enough. I think that you and I are, like you said, we're cartoons. We're kind of engaging enough. Our conversations with the artist are engaging. And really the audience was engaged. Like, it was great. It was kind of, I think I said this before, it was kind of a high to sit there and, like, you watch people and they're smiling and they're like looking on because they're genuinely interested and excited in what's going on. I believe that's what was going to happen. Like, I really had this kind of positive attitude of like, well, I think it's really great. I think this is a great project. And I think people are going to want to be there and want to respond and want to participate.
There was one of the person in the audience that came to like 4 or 5 performances.
Yeah.
And yesterday we had an artist talk and he came with a bottle of champagne and some dog treats for my dog and say, thank you. And he just brought us a gift, because that made him happy.
Because it touched him.
Yeah.
That's the best thing that could happen.
Fun, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you guys, as part of the show, I mean, I guess we should also kind of set it up for maybe people who haven't seen it. There obviously will be links
Maca.tv.
and stuff. Yep, I'll put all of that up on the website for that. But you guys kind of have these 3 foundations: there's learn,
Make, and show.
and show.
Or reflect.
And so learn is the presentation of the art.
Yes.
Making is the audience engagement in reproducing.
Online. Yeah, online. It's a website.
Oh.
Make is a website.
Yeah.
And workshops, but it's the base of Make is a virtual. It's a website.
And then show,
The exhibition space where people can bring their work.
is that up now? Or is that
Yes.
coming afterwards?
Yeah, it's
That's
now.
up
It's
now.
packed.
Okay, so that's part of
So
it.
it's basically the way that the exhibition works is that it keeps building throughout the process of the entire Maca exhibition.
So as soon as someone shows up with something, they're like, hey, check this out. I made this.
yeah.
You guys put that into
and
the
the
space.
artists that
if it's inspired by a recipe.
yeah,
right?
if it's
Right,
inspired
right,
by
right.
recipe. Yeah. That's
Right.
the big thing is it needs to somehow reflect the recipe in some way. And the way that the exhibition is building is we had our first 2 artists at the opening. So we had 2 pieces of art. We had
was
2 artists'
empty
work. It
at
was
the
an empty
beginning.
gallery at the very beginning. It just
Super.
had-
And sorry, Sean.
Yeah.
Empty with pedestals
Yeah.
and white walls. That was dramatic,
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It's pretty
right?
striking.
Yeah. And so then like we installed the first pieces and that was the show. And then we had 2 more artists and we installed 2 more pieces and then people started making the work. And so then we brought work in, that came from, people from the community. And then that's just how the exhibition has been growing. And I didn't get a count when we left,
It's
but
packed.
there's a lot of work and it's kind of great to walk into the
And
space.
it's really cool.
And I think one of the most amazing things is, you walk into a lot of galleries and a piece is isolated, right? It has it's in a white wall space. There's nothing kind of around it. And that's part of the idea. Like if you step back, obviously you can see everything, but you can isolate the piece. What's interesting about the Maca exhibition, and I think what actually works with this idea of the original and people kind of reappropriating, recreating these works is that you're always an eye shot. there's always something that's referencing something else, and there's always this dialogue that's happening between pieces. So with Dita's piece, you can actually look at Dita's piece and look at other pieces based on Dita's piece. Like on this recipe, you can look at her piece and see how it's related to Johanna's piece. That there's a direct conversation that's constantly happening within the space.
And the website is a food court. Like, what do you want? Like Chinese, Indian?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to make? Like a sculpture, a video? It's
Yeah. Do you want to do a performance?
Yeah, do you want a video, performance?
Do you want to take a bunch of lamb fat and slice it up and make Barbie dolls out of it?
Or do you want to be the annoying one that wants to change everything in the menu? You know, like...
Yeah.
And so that's what's in the space. Like, in the space, you have like videos, you have pictures, you have sculptures, you have like tons of stuff, you know? And it's just kind of like... it's really aesthetically extremely pleasing, the space.
It is, yeah. I really like. I
and
love
we don't get
standing
credit
in it.
for it because none of us nobody. I mean, we select the artist and the works, but we never selected the work to match with each other. We just selected the work to be appropriate for a recipe. Like, I don't want it was harder to have a painter that spends 10 hours in his studio and for some obscure reason decides to make this a white stripe. We couldn't have that fit. We need people that put stuff together.
It's amazing. What's going to happen to all the artworks once this goes down?
They go back to the artist. Yeah.
And so there is no exhibition, really. It's, it returns to whence it came.
Well, yeah,
It's
as all exhibitions do, yeah.
Right.
I think that, that's just the nature of exhibitions, right? It always just goes back to wherever that is.
Some vault somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's the idea is that then once the MACA, the Mastering the Art of Contemporary Art exhibition is complete,
right,
then the works all go back to the owners of those works. They
can live onwards if the owners so desire.
Yeah, they can live with the recipes, these pieces that they've made, and maybe they're
show it somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe they'll show it someplace else, or maybe they're a college student and this is the piece that they've made because they've never made it work, or maybe they're a professional artist and they decided to go ahead and do another recipe of another artist, and so then it becomes part of their kind of ongoing dialogue within their practice.
Do you guys have any anything kind of specific or something that springs to mind that you learned this time around? Now you've done the show for the first time ever. Was there a surprise, something you learned, something that stood out from actualizing the ideas you've been talking about for so long?
Sean, I can answer, but I'm going to leave you some time to think.
No. Go ahead and answer, and I'll just keep thinking. Yeah.
I'm I give you a chance.
Yeah. No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Late.
Yeah. I know how this works.
I was always thinking of how repetitive the performance are going to be.
Yeah.
In the sense that I'm you get the first one, you get excited, and you're in everything it becomes repetitive. And what surprised me is that as every practice is so unique, because when you repeat, I'm bored very fast. So when I repeat, I'm bored. So, I remember there was the sixth, seventh performance, I think. Julie Beach, she arrives and she's listen, silence is one of the ingredients of my work. So I'm the problem is that we need to speak because we need to do a recipe. And so we sat together and started being creative on how to make it work while respecting her practice and still fitting in the format. So what happened is that she was in the counter making the work, me standing next to her in every other performance, and behind her was her boyfriend who is working very closely with her. So I was turning my head looking at Julie and say, so Julie, what exactly is here? And there was a male voice from behind saying,
standing in the background saying what you're doing
here,
Yeah.
what I'm doing is that, blah, blah. And I was very interesting, Julie, still looking at Julie, and we create this triangle, and that worked fine. People loved it, and that's what surprised me, is that as every practice is unique, we end up keep on being unique. The only thing we need is someone to talk and show the steps to make the work. How it's gonna happen?
Yeah, it could be
up
anything.
to us to with the artist. It's a real collaboration to keep on creating new performance, because the performance are artworks on their own, each of them, right? So that was my answer, Sean.
I actually am thinking two things. One thing I think goes back to the performances where I was part of that, like part of this thing of like they weren't boring ever. Like there was never there was no repetition other than the fact that we were always in the same space. But every time we were in the space, it felt so different, which was kind of amazing. I also think that doing this with these artists, I was really amazed at how engaged they were, how much they loved doing this, how much they really seemed to like find it so intriguing. But also the other part that I've sat in the Kunsthal kind of watching and I just kind of wander around. I really like watching people come in when there's no performance and they sit in a quiet set. And sit and it's kind of quiet. I mean, we have this show playing in the background, but they sit and they'll watch. They just kind of look at the space and they look at. We have two TVs, one that's showing kind of a slideshow of the artist works that we've been working with, and then the other TV has the episodes on. And I've watched people just sit and they watch. And they just kind of, they look over things and then they get up and then they walk over to the sink and they kind of look at the sink and then they walk over to these other things and they look at things.
They go backstage and they see us while we're editing the videos, you know.
So it's completely open.
Everything's completely open. We actually edit all the videos in the back. We put together all the slideshows in the back.
So it became a performance too, like us being there. I mean, with the person like Ilse that was working with us to edit. Us being there, having all these like big computers with all the like editing softwares, that reminds again the cliche you have of like the back room of like where the shows are. That ended up being part of the work.
Yeah.
And people were staying as well during the performance too. I was surprised that people. I mean, the last 45 minutes. I've been to many art performances. I mean, you keep me more than 10 minutes.
I was going to say 6. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more patient.
Yeah.
Which is not true.
It's okay for stuff to be bad, you know, like there's that whole idea that you're supposed to look at an artwork long enough to make it good. It's okay just to look at it and be like, yeah, that's not me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm out here.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's me, but I have enough of it, you know. Like,
exactly. But it was, it's amazing that it was engaging enough for people to want to sit and watch in some way. Maybe it was engaging visually. Maybe it was engaging because of Esmeralda and I. Maybe
we want to believe it was engaging. And the people were like, yawning, didn't want to stand up.
They were just being polite.
Yeah, exactly. Classic Protestant Danish polite.
Like, no, I don't want to do this.
Imagining Ingrid would be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I don't want to be here anymore, but I can't stand up.
Yeah.
But it was kind of funny, like after the performances, because I was really curious how this was going to work. It's also funny because I've seen people take selfies in the kitchen. That was one of the funniest things. I came around the corner and I looked over and there was this guy, I don't know, like 60, with his iPhone standing there making, kind of a smile, kind of, some...
I'm a cool guy.
Yeah, face. And taking a photograph in front of like the window in the rack of tools. And it was just kind of like, what? Okay, well, it's a really interesting way to engage, you know, and also walking into, like, I walked by the gallery yesterday where the exhibition, like all the artworks are, and there was a woman standing in the middle, just staring up at a piece. She was just staring at it. And it was such a beautiful little moment. It was this kind of like, almost like a child looks at something, just kind of like, that's all that exists.
And
it was amazing.
We don't get credit on that. I mean, I don't take any. It's just it naturally happens. We didn't intend to make anything to make it happen that way.
You did. Well, you made the space. You created the circumstances for this to happen, and it's thanks to everybody who took part of it. No, but that's that organic foundation of the idea, which is carrying this so far.
Yeah, I have I think for me, organic ideas are really, they're the ones that succeed, right? I think that when there's so much hands-on, there's so many people touching things, they tend to fail in some way. But having something grow organically really kind of makes them more dynamic. It makes them more interesting. It makes them more like flavorful. It makes them more engaging. And this really was an organic process for us.
And it tasted good.
It did taste pretty good.
So what's next? What are we looking at now? You guys got to have some decompression time at some point.
Separate or together?
Well, just I think for Macca, for the idea, the concept of what you've started now.
I think that we'll continue to be working on the website, which is obviously
Yeah.
something that will kind of grow and develop. I think
We
that
need to right away.
Yeah.
Because we're New Yorkers, right?
yeah, we have to keep working.
You just stop working. No, I'm trying to push the baby blues depression as much as I can, you know? So no, right away, I think, we want to, like, we had started talking with some institutions, and we want, now that we have some things to show,
And funding
continue the
sources,
conversation, like right away, because you have to, in French we say you have to hit the iron when it's still hot.
Yeah, it's the same in English. I think that we came up with it first, though.
Okay, yeah.
Probably the Brits did.
Probably the Irish.
Probably the Irish, exactly.
Those drunk
Yeah,
smithies.
exactly.
So that's what's next. Next is to
Well, now you have a lot to show for the idea.
Well, we have more than 500 words in a mood board. Yes. So,
I
which
bet
is
you have a
fantastic.
lot of hours.
We have a lot of hours. We have a lot of, we have a piece, and that piece is the Maca.tv website.
Yeah.
Like, it really, that is a piece.
That's the work.
And that's what will survive after everything
what'll
is
survive,
taken over.
yeah.
Well, I think, obviously, thank you guys for your time. I do have a final question. It's the goddamn worst question ever.
Yes.
And I think it's very much related to what this show is.
World peace. Oh, sorry. No.
Number 42. No, I like to ask people what art is for in their own mind. Why do we do this? Why do we choose to engage with the world in this way? And I think that is, whether it was on purpose or not, kind of one of the things you guys are exploring with this exhibition. Yeah. So it's fair to say, go to our website and the answer lies within. But, if you guys have
bullshit. I hate that stuff.
I mean, that's true, but I think that it's bigger
What's art
than that.
for you, Sean?
I would say, I think that there's a deep value in cultural understanding, right? And I think that what comes out of a lot of artwork is that we start to understand ourselves in relationships to others. I think that our relationships to others becomes more clear, more defined. Hopefully it asks more questions through visual art, and actually all arts, not even visual, like cooking is also in there, and performance and movies and books. I think that it also it defines our history in time. I think that that's also a really important thing. So yeah, I would say that those, for me at least, that's something that's really important. But it's relational. It's how we relate to each other in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. How about you?
For me, it's a language. It's as simple as that. It's a language that transcends languages. When I speak about language, it transcends words. And personally, I'm multilingual because I'm Greek and French, and I don't feel like I own neither nor, because so my best way to be able to express my thoughts, because I know I will do averagely in each language, is to do art about it.
I know exactly what you mean.
You see what I mean? So that's why I started. I mean, intuitively it started that way, because I hear myself, and you're going to hear it during the interview. I have one idea, and in the same sentence, I reformulate the same idea 4 or 5 times, because I have this deep anxiety that I'm not fully understood the concept behind. Because concept, it's not words. Concept is concepts. So you can translate them with words, or with images, or with Maca.
Communication.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for your time.
Fun.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool.
This was great.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Loads of fun.
Thank you. And do we clap now, hands or something?
we can
Cool.
All right, that was Sean and Esmeralda. How great was that? So, thank you for listening to this episode of the Undergang Armchair. Special welcome to all the new listeners out there. The intro and outro music was kindly provided by Johnny Ripper, and today's interstitial music was provided by RC. You can find links to their music and tons of other great conversations with awesome people on our book festival of a website, undergang.net. If you do like the show, we would appreciate it if you'd take the time to leave a review on iTunes so that other people can find us. This show is produced in part with the kind support of the Danish Arts Council. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.